Hello, welcome to the Opinionistics. I'm your host, John Maloney. In this episode, don't have co-hosts because reasons, apparently. Introducing from somewhere in New York City, Tom Conlon.
Hey, what's up, Peter? Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yes, me too. So, Tom, what is it you mainly do for a living?
I run a branding agency. I run a company called North Street Creative. I've been doing it for the last 13 years. We're a branding and design agency that mostly works with financial services firms, business to business firms, and nonprofits. What we do, what that actually means is we can do things like create company and organization names, create their kind of what we call their verbal identity. They're sort of like how they talk about themselves and how they talk to their audiences, and create the look and feel. We call that the visual identity, the logo and all the fun stuff that goes along with that. And then website design and development. Websites are usually the biggest marketing asset that a company has. And so that's a piece that we're heavily involved in.
All right, very nice. And what inspired you to get into that?
Uh, okay, that's an interesting question. I will tell you that my background is I'll give you the long story, but I'll do it quickly. I was in college and I was a history major. I was taking a bunch of history classes and had thousands of pages of papers due each semester. This was about 1998 or 99, and I went to Fordham University in the Bronx. I had to take an elective that was called Intro to HTML. This was when like Amazon was kind of a new thing, and the internet itself was pretty new. So took this class, and I'm 45, so this is gonna age me. But what blew me away was this: I was in my dorm room on my computer, telling a computer, putting commands into a computer to tell it what to do, i.e., create a web page, and then I could go to the library, log on to a totally different computer, and see the work that I had done that like I'd created on my home computer, right? So these days people take that sort of connectivity, or that sort of like always up, always live, accessible from anywhere kind of thing for granted. But at the time it was seriously mind-blowing to be able to like open something on one computer, or any computer, and see it and interact with it, and more importantly also update it in real time. So I was like, this is it, this is my future, I'm going to do the internet. Fordham University did not at the time offer any kind of a website design or development class, so I basically just constructed my own major, taking every single creative class I could. So Photoshop, Illustrator, all of that. um, I wound up in the magazine industry right out of college. I was in magazines, but working on the website side. And this was like .com bust number one. So lost my job, found myself at another magazine that closed because magazines as a whole kind of imploded. And I found myself as a freelancer. And that was the beginning. I was a freelancer, and I got busy, and I got to a point where I was getting a lot of opportunities to work on projects, but they were either they were either bigger or better than me, meaning the project was way too big for me to do myself, or the design or website programming they were asking for was way above my expertise. And so I kind of had this moment. I was like, I'm either going to remain a freelancer, which is fine. And this is before the gig economy. This is like 2007 or so. So I was like, I'm either going to be a freelancer, and that's fine, but I'm going to have to say no to a lot of projects and opportunities, or maybe I can start getting other people to help me out, and I can project manage and not necessarily do everything. And that was really the beginning. I ran a couple projects where I hired a friend of mine who was a developer who coded some things. I hired another friend who was really good at logos, and he designed a few things for me. And I was like, I think this is going to work. And that was the sort of beginning. And the way it started was, then we started hiring sort of freelancers on a regular basis, transitioned them to full time. Here I am 13 years later with 11 people. we're virtual. I mean, we've got offices in New York and in Providence, Rhode Island, but I've got team all over the world, and that's that's the start of it. Why I wanted to get into it is because I'm a highly visual person. I love everything about design, even though I'm not actually the active designer at my company anymore. I love everything we do. I love presenting work to a client that my team did that I didn't do. So it's the world I want to be in, and I'm lucky enough to be able to do that for a living.
Wow, fantastic. So, how long have you been working as like generally a designer for? How long have you been doing the work that you've been doing?
So yeah, I mean, I started I started my first full time job while I was in college in 1999. I was a web designer and web developer, so I was designing websites, designing logos, and actually coding in HTML. And I've been doing, and I'd say for I did that for most of my career, and I'd say it's only in the last probably 7 years that maybe even less, five, that I've transitioned into, full CEO role where I'm now running a company, and I'm also in charge of all new business development. So I'm not actively designing anymore. It's funny, I got a new MacBook recently, and the only Adobe program I installed on it was Acrobat, and I no longer have like a personal server running on a local server running on my computer, which I needed as an active developer. Now I guess I'm a business guy.
Wow, fabulous. What and out of the projects, design-wise, what do you think has been the biggest that you've ever worked on?
Uh, there's a couple ways to answer that because there's big in scale and there's big in brand name recognition, right? So, um, we've actually done some creative work for Spotify and YouTube and American Express, but those were very small projects in the context of everything those companies have going on. I'd say one project that stands out to me because it's big name recognition, but it was also a really big project. Was um, we've done for a few years we've done the annual report for the Environmental Defense Fund. So Environmental Defense Fund is obviously a well-known organization, and we did a really really big annual report for them starting in 2020, where it was both a print piece that went out it got printed and went out to large donors, but we also created a really really cool interactive website experience. It's also big, honestly, because they were a big client in terms of their team. They had Sometimes we're working with just the owner of a company, sometimes we're working with a small marketing department. The Environmental Defense Fund had maybe 20 people on their end from all sorts of different departments. It was super collaborative. They had designers, they had content people, they had development people, copywriters, videographers. So that was a big project on all levels.
Wow, nice. Is there a project that you haven't done yet, but you've always had a dream of wanting to work in such projects like that?
Yeah, actually, one of our goals as a company, um, in the next 5 to 10 years is to, it's not necessarily a specific client, but it is to do a full scale rebrand of a household name, right? So American Express is a good example. They rebranded a few years ago, and we got to work on some of that. We didn't do the rebrand; that was done by Pentagram, um, but we worked on some website stuff that came out of that. But for us to, think of one of the big financial services firms, like a Blackstone or something like that, or a huge nonprofit, just something that if you met somebody at a cocktail party and they asked you like what you're working on and you said the name, they would immediately recognize it. Now for us, that's not consumer branding because we don't do consumer branding. We do business to business, so it would have to be some sort of financial services company, but something you see ads on TV for.
Oh, all right then. I can see that. Where do you see yourself 20 years from now?
20 years from now, let's see. That's a good question. I think that I've got a dream to continue to scale North Street. Uh, you know, grow it, grow it to the point where it's fairly self-sufficient without me. I always want to be involved in the company, and I see myself as sort of always being like I don't know, like chairman of the board or something like that down the road. Still be involved in my company, but I'm also involved because of the work that we do. We are involved with a lot of like private equity firms uh, who are hiring us because of their investment in other companies, or we're working with startups that are funded. And I think it would be really exciting to be sort of running a I don't know if it's a venture fund or a venture studio of some kind where we're not just doing the work, we're not just doing the branding of a company that's created. We're actually like helping companies with compelling products or stories, like actually launch the companies themselves in addition to the brand work we do. So I don't know, I could see myself in 20 years kind of doing both, running North Street as as a very involved advisor, but also going out there and helping launch companies.
Nice. Very good. So, is there another profession or job that you would like to work on alongside what you're doing right now?
Oh man, my dream when I was a kid, not a kid, I'd say a teenager, was to honestly was to own a music store. I'm a huge music fan, and I some of my favorite record store. I grew up in Providence, Rhode Island area, and there were some great record stores there where you could go in. They had CDs, but they had actual records, and you can sort of talk to the guy behind the counter about, hey, if you like this, check this out. Real like community experience, and um, I just thought it would be so fun to have a record store. Now, obviously, the financial prospect of that has changed incredibly since I was 17 or 16, and I'm not sure that's the best business to get into. But I think, let's say, in my 20-year scenario where I'm running North Street, I'm running a venture fund. I wouldn't mind also having a little record store somewhere, where it's just, I'm surrounded by the stuff that I love with interesting people who are into different types of music. And those stores exist. I mean, I was in Santa Cruz kind of recently and went into a record store, and I was like taken back to like my childhood. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Mm, fabulous. If your life was a meal, what kind of meal would it be?
My favorite way to eat when I go to restaurants is to sit down at the bar with whoever I'm with and split split like three or four meals, right? Or dishes. So usually like a salad and two appetizers and then a main course. That's how I like to eat. It's like, you take bites of everything, get a lot of different tastes. Um, and so I think I like that idea. It's diverse, it's fun, it's different every time. Um, so I think that's what I do. It would be sitting at the bar, sharing apps and a meal with a good friend.
Fabulous. How did you spend your last birthday?
Let's see. My last birthday, I spent in New York City. Went out to dinner with a friend. And then also went to a spa with a friend. For a massage. So that's my style. Little take care of myself with a massage and dinner. It was perfect.
Wow, sweet. If you have to get rid of a holiday, which would you get rid of?
Wow. Let's see. I could be controversial and say Columbus Day. My daughter was actually asking me about Christopher Columbus the other day, and I had to sort of give her the Cliff's notes on why we call it Indigenous Peoples Day now. But I don't know if that's be the first on my list. I don't know, man. I mean, my sort of Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, I love. Maybe New Year's. it seems like New Year's is fun for me now. I'm 45 because I stay home. But when I was younger, living in New York City, it was wild. And now, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe St. Patty's Day too. I'm of Irish descent, but St. Patrick's Day in New York City is a sloppy
Oh, I can see that. It really is something.
mess.
If someone wrote a book about you, what do you think its title would be?
um, I'm gonna steal a title from one of my favorite authors, Tom Wolfe, who wrote a book called A Man in Full. And I just really loved that title, A Man in Full. To me, that just seems like the story would tell the whole story of my life, and hopefully it was a full life.
Nice. Where is the best place to explore?
Best place to explore. I'm actually going to say that it's your own mind, your own mind and your own spirituality, whatever that means. I don't necessarily mean religious spirituality, but I think there's an infinite universe inside of all of our brains that doesn't get tapped enough on a day to day basis because we're just all stuck in our kind of routines of day to day life. So when you do things like meditation or you read any books on existentialism, I think you start to sort of open, I don't know, open a wormhole into your brain and soul, and it's there's infinite exploration there.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you rather speak all languages or talk to animals?
I'd rather speak all languages. I'm like I took Spanish when I was coming up in school, and when I got to college I stopped taking Spanish. My best friend from growing up majored in Spanish, then lived in Spain for a year, and to this day is still fluent in Spanish, and I'm incredibly jealous. I also, like, a dream of mine is to go to Japan at some point, and good friend of mine went to Japan once with a friend who was had been living in America but was originally from Japan, and he just said like having a having a local there who could speak the language was just like incredible. And so uh, that would be, I mean, just to be able to go anywhere in the world hit the ground running, and not be held back by the language barrier would be huge to me. And I also just think that, look, I spend a good amount of my time in New York City, and there's a lot of different languages being spoken as a primary language, depending on who you're with and what stores or businesses you go in and out of. And just to be able to communicate with people um, in their native tongue, or the tongue that they're most comfortable in, would be amazing.
Yes, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. What's your favorite kind of dessert?
Mm. Okay, so I am one of those people that really likes um, like sour fruit candy. So I mean, yeah, cookies, chocolate, that stuff's all good, but give me a bag of Sour Patch Kids, and I'm set.
Wow, nice. Have you heard of a drink called banana friche?
Nope. What is it?
Well, it's a banana flavored smoothie slash milkshake and has all the tingly sensations in the world. So yeah.
Never heard of it. I'm actually a big fan of ginger in drinks. The way you were describing that drink, it's sort of like that sounds smooth and tingly. I like ginger in a either a ginger beer or some sort of drink with like a ginger kick in it, because I just love that like sort of spicy feeling that you get when when you drink it.
Ah, okay. Nice. If you had a song for every time you entered the room, what song would that be?
um, let's see. Um, Man, that's a good one. Let's go with a let's go with Rocket Queen by Guns N' Roses. It's a solid banger of a song, and I think it's one of their lesser known songs off of Appetite for Destruction.
Wow, fabulous. Would you rather not be able to open closed doors or not be able to close open doors?
Say it again.
Okay,
I'm picturing it in my head as you say it. Go
all
ahead.
right. So, would you rather not be able to open closed doors or not be able to close open doors?
I would want to be able to open closed doors if that is if that's I think that's one of the things I think that's one of the answers. I want to be able to open closed doors because it feels like, you know, mystery, surprise, opportunity is uh is behind unopened doors. I think, to a certain extent, once a door is open, it's either hard to close or it shouldn't be closed or it can't be closed. So what's done is done.
Yes, absolutely. If life was a game, like most people say, what are some of the rules?
Um, I like games that are, I think collaboration is I like games where there's collaboration, but I also like competition. I think thinking and strategy is important. I used to my kids and I play a game called Trouble, which it's that game with the little dice and the bubble in the middle, and there's some strategy around, if you're going to take out if I'm going to land on a piece and get an extra turn, or if I'm going to take out one of my daughter's pieces and send her back to the beginning. So I think that and I used to also play a game called Stratego when I was little. I think it's a lot like that game Risk, but it's smaller. It's like it's the scale of it is a battlefield rather than like the whole globe. And I think that, I mean, to its name, Stratego, it was a highly strategic game where you had to think a lot about kind of the playing field and what your next move was going to be and what your opponent's move after your move was going to be. So I think I just like the way I think that honestly that I think my brain developed a certain way because of those games I played as a kid.
Ah, yes, I can picture it now. What's your favorite type of day?
My favorite type of day, the weather has to be beautiful, and beautiful for me, people define beautiful differently. Some people love rainstorms. I'm okay with them, but I'd want, 70s in temperature, nice warm sun hitting your face. I'm as the owner of a company, I my work and my life are intertwined. So I for me it would be like get up, get up on my own, not with an alarm, exercise, make myself a nice delicious breakfast, get a little bit of work done, probably just catching up on emails, maybe checking in with a colleague or a client, um, and then having some free time to sit down and think, or go on a walk in the woods or something like that. And um, to go back to my birthday, a massage and a nice meal would also have to be included.
Ah, yes, sweet. In what situation or place would you feel the most out of place in?
Hmm. Well, I think your question before about speaking languages just has me kind of thinking, again, like I want to go to Japan someday, but I don't want to land in Japan and have no idea how to even get to my hotel and not even be able to like speak to the cab driver who's going to take me to my hotel. So, just top of my mind, I think any place where uh, I can't communicate effectively with using the primary language of the location I'm in would be extremely uncomfortable and nerve wracking for me.
Hmm, yes, of course. If you could know the absolute and total truth to one question, what question would you ask?
Oh, I think I really want to know if we're alone in the universe. You know, I it seems impossible if you zoom out from Earth and our solar system in the Milky Way that there is not other intelligent life out there. And I feel like every day I'm reading headlines about the Pentagon declassifying UFO reports and or like radio signals from distant galaxies. So yeah, I think I just definitively want to know like who else is out there and are they
Yeah,
friendly?
yeah, of course. What is something you tried that you didn't think you would like, but you ending up really liking it?
Um, I think it's what I do for a living as like the sort of sales and marketing lead for my company. I started my career. I'm naturally an introvert. I started my career as a website designer and developer, and so I could sit in front of a computer in a dark room for 8 hours without speaking to another human, just coding or designing, and that was nice at the time. I just that worked for me, and the thought of being out there, my job being out there talking to people and being in rooms full of people, or even being upstage on a up on stage on a panel or something like that, was nightmare territory for me. And now I love that sort of stuff. I'm a people person now. Maybe I always was, and I just needed to be kind of coaxed out of my introvert cave. But um, it still surprises me now that I can. Here's an example. I got onto a new business call the other day on Zoom. I was expecting it to be a fairly informal kind of catch up with my contact at the client, and four of his colleagues show up on the call as well. Um, I think old Tom would have had a nervous breakdown and stumbled through the whole thing. The new me, or the current me, was pretty psyched about it. I was like, oh, all right, cool. Well, all right, change of plans. This is more of a presentation than a conversation, but let's do it.
Hmm, yes, indeed. If the internet suddenly stopped existing, what would you do with the time you used to spend on the internet?
Woodworking or like home improvement. During COVID, I found myself out in my garage doing all sorts of things. Not fine woodworking. Maybe I'd get there eventually, but just building things with my hands. Everything I do for work is on a screen, right? And so to be able to create and build something that's tangible that you can hold in your hands, that you can point to and say, I did that, and you can actually touch it, is definitely something I would spend some time on.
All right then. Yes, I could say that. Kind of, I guess. What was the longest trip you've ever been on?
The longest trip I've ever been on, I was fortunate enough as a 15-year-old to go to Alaska on a educational cruise. My grandparents were cruisers, cruised all around the world, and got some sort of discount to bring me and my cousin aboard this vessel that uh, left Vancouver, British Columbia, and went up into parts of Alaska. I think it was about a little more than a week. Um, I don't really take vacations longer than a week now, but that was more than a week, and I saw a bunch of different places. Like I saw glaciers, I saw little towns with like populations of 700. I saw Juneau, Alaska, which was beautiful. So that was a nice, long, fun trip.
Wow, fabulous. And that is all we have for this episode. It was great having you on, Tom, talking about working as a brand and creative agency and all the designer work you've done. Everything else has been great.
Yeah, Peter, thanks a lot. Great questions. This was a lot of fun.
It sure was. And until next time, stay opinionated.